Hello everybody, welcome to I Command, and today we are going to be talking about the first set of updates. This is the 6.1 update from August 30th. This came out on Monday, and the steering committee updated 12 cards from Season 6, and this is part of a planned series of updates during the playtesting period. So what they've been doing is 2 updates per playtest period where they tweak some of the cards based on the feedback they get from the playtesting and from the community's opinions. And so this round, 12 cards got changed out of the 20 that were released for Season 6. And I just want to go through them for everybody who is interested in the project, and also talk about my experiences with playtesting with these cards, and also just kind of my thoughts about the cards in general. So this article is up on the site, and I'll link to it in the description. It talks about all of the updates and why they were updated, why they were done. And actually, this article is written by yours truly. I actually wrote the article because I was part of some of the discussions with the steering committee about some of the things that I thought needed to be changed. They took some of my ideas. They didn't take some of my other ideas. So, but really they listened to the community feedback. Like, a lot of this changes came from listening to people talking in the Zion's Finest Slack channel, and listening to people in the playtest survey. Excuse me. So let's go into the cards. I've already kind of shared why it was done, like the kind of the on-brand message for these changes. I'm going to share my personal thoughts in this video because that's what we do here. We just share our thoughts. And we're a one-man operation, and so that's what we're going to do. We're going to share thoughts. Alright, so let's talk about the first card here. The first update was Cara Dune, and her command card were both updated. So Cara Dune, her update is that the +1 block that was innate to her card got removed. And then Smash, they tweaked it so that, excuse me, still recovering from that cold a little bit. They tweaked it so that you can only push the figure you target to a space that's adjacent to Cara Dune. And the reason for that, let's talk about the +1 block. So, I have been playing in the playtest season, and I have played quite a few games against Cara. And I think my experience and a lot of people's experience is you play extra armor with her, and you put a block token or 2 block tokens on her, and then she's also got Hunker Down, which is really easy to get. So now you're dealing with 2 blocks and an evade on top of a black die, and she's got 14 health, which is really high. I mean, it's not super high for a figure that costs on 9 points. You compare it to Dracata, who has 12 points though for 9 health and the +1 block. Pretty good. And I played against a lot of lists that were running her alongside Dracata because they're both heavy weapons. They're 9 points, so they play really well with heavy fire, the skirmish upgrade that does extra damage, but you get stunned and bleeding, because you run that with Unshakable, and they're both able to use Unshakable to remove their status conditions. Or I've seen her with like a bunch of Wookiees, or just with a lot of beef, and she's really beefy, and I think it makes sense. It's a lot to have to chew through. With Echo-based troopers are really tough, and they go well with her since she's a trooper. It was just a lot to have to deal with Hunker Down already being a defense, an innate defense bonus on her, to also have to deal with that +1 block. So I'm glad to see that got changed. She still has all of her blast abilities in the surges, and I think that's fine. I saw some people were talking about Blast 3 is too much for someone that's not named General Vice or Rebel Saboteurs. But the funny thing is that blast being tied to her +2 damage, I think it's funny because she's so reliant on Parting Blow to get the extra damage she needs to justify her 9-point cost. But then when she Parting Blows you after she uses Smash, you're still adjacent to her when she does that, so she has to blast herself if she wants to get that surge for +2 damage, which I think is funny. But I'm sure the steering committee is going to be watching that and seeing if the blast needs to get updated. The other change was to Smash, and the reason that was changed was because of her command card Ambush. So what was happening is she was using ambush, which lets her use smash. So this lets her interrupt someone's attack to push them away from her, or move up to them and push them away from her, which creates a lot of situations where she can actually push the attacker away from her so that there's something in between them blocking line of sight to her, like another figure usually, or maybe terrain or a wall. But she does it so that she can break line of sight, and then the attack stops, and it's basically like on the lam for 1 point, with a lot of conditions. But there was a lot of discussion in the Slack about how with this season and recently there with all of these kind of like abilities that trigger defensively, it's a lot to keep track of when you're the attacker, when you're playing and you're trying to figure out who am I going to attack, how do I position. You have to, there's so many things you have to think about now. Like it used to be like, okay, if I'm attacking a smuggler, they might lam me, so maybe I shouldn't attack a smuggler. Or if I'm attacking this guardian that has 4 health left, they might play Iron Will and live with 1 health. But yeah, there was a lot of defensive cards. So ambush is going to still stay the same though. You still need to account for ambush, but it's a lot easier to just be like, okay, well, my figure has more than a red die's worth of health left. I think I'll be okay if she ambushes me. Or just yeah, she can still, there is a problem with it. She can still ambush and then parting blow and deal a ton of damage to you and probably kill you. It's comparable to like Ahsoka's command card where she can ping you for 1 damage to interrupt your attack, or 3 damage if she has a power token. I like that more, and I really advocated for that, but they still wanted to keep the smash on there, to make it just like move up and deal 2 damage. And then you only have to think, okay, as long as I have more than 2 damage, I'm safe, and that's all you have to think about. But especially problematic is when you have to think, okay, well, where's my figure positioned in relation to this other figure that's next to them, or this piece of terrain, and can they ambush in a way that it'll push me just this out of the way here, and will it break line of sight? It was very complicated, and I think that's very good that they got rid of that negative play experience of being able to have ambush break line of sight by changing smash. So hopefully that makes things a little better for Kara and ambush. Moving on, talking about Khotun. So Khotun was quite the hot topic during the play testing for this first month. So her change was that she had arms distribution has changed. So it had gotten changed to giving out 2 any type of power tokens. Now it only gives out 1 power token per turn, but you get a bonus one after deployment, and you can give it to Khotun herself, which is different from the original FFG version, which could only give it to other figures. And then her dead precise change. So this used to give a pierce 1 on top of the -1 dodge whenever a figure within 3 spaces spent a power token while attacking. Now it gives a reroll. So a bit of a downgrade there, arguably, although you could say it's an upgrade because it lets you play with stuff like getting extra surges or getting extra accuracy. But this is good. The thing that was happening with Khotun is she was just really efficient at pumping out damage power tokens without having to spend an action or anything that usually rebels need to do to kind of pump up their attacks. The whole like spitting out power tokens for free is definitely, I think, more of an Empire thing, just because they don't have easy access to focus on demand. Like they only have focus through their own, like their figures can generate their own focus sometimes, but they can't just focus each other up whenever they want, like Rebels and Scum can. So being able to focus up a bunch of figures in the early rounds and then keep pumping out tokens round after round to pump up attacks, as well as being able to add those tokens to focus that Empire doesn't have access to, as well as the Pierce 1. So you're adding this +1 damage, you're also adding Pierce 1, no dodges, and then probably focused as well, and you can put that on any figure. So Han, like I thought that was a big problem, was being able to do that with Han just was crazy. And then on top of that, we've got Cassian from last season who can give out up to 4 power tokens with Hera. But he only does that once per game. So that's usually like a little more balanced and manageable. Kotun is spitting out 6 to 8 tokens, which she's doing 2 per turn. Assuming the game goes 3 to 4 rounds long. And she stays alive that long, I guess. But it wasn't difficult to keep her kind of just at the back and providing that dead precise support. Squad cohesion is super fun, though. I gotta say, I like that ability. So yeah, a bit of a downgrade, but I think they did a good job with this one. This one was not my suggestion, but I do think this is a pretty good compromise between what she came out with as originally and then not just nerfing her into the ground, because nobody wants that. Nobody wants to see these figures get nerfed into unplayability. Like, that's not the goal here. The goal is to get these figures to a point where they are balanced, fun to play with, competitive, but not like staples or auto includes that you have to put in every list. You know, the power creep is real. It happens even when nobody here is trying to make any money on anything. Like, we're not trying to sell new booster packs to people here. It's just that there's a desire to make figures that can be competitive in the meta, shake up the meta. Because if you have a bunch of underpowered figures that come out, and I'm getting a bit on a tangent here on power creep, but I said I was going to share my thoughts in this video. If you make a bunch of cards, new cards, and they all suck, and they're underpowered, and nobody wants to use them, you have effectively changed nothing about the competitive side of the game, and the game just stays the same, and people end up playing the same, seeing the same things that they saw before the new cards came out. So you need the new cards to be good enough that they make an impact and are worth taking, but not so good that they completely eclipse the things that came before and make them obsolete, because you don't want that either. It's a very tough, fine line to cross, and we spent much too much time on Kotun at this point. But I will just mention her command card, as people know, gives her the reroll. It spits out 2 tokens, and it gives any figure that spends a power token a reroll. So it might seem that Dead Precise is redundant with that command card, but I will tell you that it's not, because Dead Precise has a range limit of 3 spaces. The command card is unlimited range, so it does, any figure on the table, any friendly figure that spends a power token gets a reroll. You get 2 rerolls, obviously, if you're getting Dead Precise plus the command card, which is actually not bad. Like, sometimes you need 2 rerolls. And if Kotun dies, she still gives rerolls with the command card till the end of the round, which is not the case. If she dies, you don't get Dead Precise anymore. And of course, you're also getting 2 power tokens for 1 point, which is pretty decent. So I think her command card is still going to see a lot of play. It was super, super good in the playtest period, because you were getting the reroll, the Pierce one, and all the tokens you needed. It was getting kind of crazy just how much tokens was being generated in Rebels. But moving on. Echo-based Trooper also got a little tweak. So the tweak here was, and this one was, I will share with you, was very last minute, but I think it was a good idea. Josh actually pointed out that the Echo-based Troopers, because they had a +2 accuracy added to their normal attack, that was meant to help make Frontline a lot more usable, but it just made them really good snipers, because they had Surge for +2 and Surge for +2 accuracy and Pierce 1. So they were just, he noticed that it was better for them to just hang back and snipe from far away with a focus, and with a focus, you were getting range 6 minimum, which is, yeah, really good. Eat your heart out, Rangers. And then the reason why that was a problem is because they're meant to be super tanky, like Cortosis Weave, which, by the way, I think could just go back to being combat, or whatever their ability was that reduces Pierce by 1. They are super tanky. They have the golden 2-for-1 health to points cost ratio. It's actually more because their points cost is 7. I mean, the figure cost is 4, so it's 2-to-1, but it's really more than 2-to-1 because you're only paying 7 points to bring them. So they are tanky AF, and especially if you give them a power token, which cannot be pierced. Yeah, so they're super tanky. So the problem with having snipers that are really tanky is, the idea with a sniper is they can hit you hard from far away, but if you can close the gap and get to them, then they go down really fast, a la Alliance Rangers. That's how they work. But the Echo-based troopers, they can snipe you, but then you get to them, and then you have to put like 2 to 3 attacks into them to take them down, and that's not good. That's not a good balance. So small change here is moving the +2 accuracy to frontline, and the idea is that they want you to be able to just swap out that blue for the red, but attack from 3 spaces away with a red-green and not worry about making accuracy. I think that's a great change, and I hope it makes them play the way they're supposed to, which is they can shoot from far away in a pinch and do a little bit, but not from super far away, and they really want to get in close to deal the damage they want to deal. Alright, moving on. Let me check the feed here. Z6 Trooper. So Z6. So I'm going to talk about squad upgrades in general. I guess I'll just say what changed here. So the Z6 used to be green, green, yellow, and it got reduced down to green, yellow, but they got a new ability that focuses them when they attack. So for those who don't really understand why that's a downgrade, it means that you can't focus them to give them 4 dice as an attack. So anytime you see this, before you declare an attack, you become focused, that is a drawback. You should just know that. It means that you can't focus that figure because they automatically lose it. It prevents them from adding a die with focus. So he's stuck to 3 dice. So my thoughts, I want to talk about squad upgrades here. Squad upgrades, oh boy. So squad upgrades are really powerful when you can just add them to almost anything you want and make a 3-figure group. 3 figures in a group is like its own little superpower, basically, for a deployment card. Being able to attack 3 times in a row without your opponent being able to do anything about it is really strong. You go watch my tempo video, you'll see that you're basically chaining activations. And I think before I left the committee design team, I warned against 3-figure groups because that's really what defines Alliance Rangers and Stormtroopers as like what makes them good, is that they get 3 activations in a row, and it's really hard to balance with other things in the game. And then these guys like get to attack twice, so there's 4 attacks without interruptions. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm not saying it's bad that these exist. I'm saying that it's really hard to balance these. It's why I didn't want to do these when I was there. There was a lot of talk about doing it, like how can we make squad attachments like evergreen or generic, because we did it with the shore troopers and the mortar trooper, and in that case it was not difficult to balance because we just made shore troopers really boring. And we made the mortar trooper also kind of really clunky, and so it was balanced. It was a little underpowered, it turns out, so I understand the desire to kind of get a redo on that and make these a little more competitive, but they're really hard to balance. That being said, it's perfect, right? The Z6, I think this is a really good design. I guess I shouldn't be talking about the cards themselves, but the updates. Talking about my experiences, yeah, facing it down against this thing with Echo-based troopers and just having them charge up to a door that's about to open on you, and you're like, oh crap, they're going to have initiative, they're going to have Call the Vanguard, I'm going to get attacked 5 times at the start of this next round, and there's like nothing I can do about it. It's rough, and they're really strong, and then they also have a ton of health. So like I said, the Echo-based troopers have more than the 2-for-1 health ratio because they're 7 and they have 8 health each, and they have a defensive ability. And then you got this guy who's got 8 health. He doesn't have any defensive ability. It's arguable. I did recommend that I thought the health should go down to 7, but there was a feeling that without a defensive ability it was okay as an 8 health for 5 points figure. I just push back against it because it's not a figure, right? It's an upgrade. You're adding this to a group and activating all of them at the same time. So basically what happens is you eat 5 attacks, 2 of which are focused, if they have Call the Vanguard. If they don't, you eat 4, or maybe 3 if auto fire fails in worst case scenario. And then you've got to go through 24 health to deal with this figure. You know, like that's 7 plus 5 is 12 points. 12 points gives you usually like 15 health for something like IG-88, or what else is 12? I guess Old Luke, but we don't use Old Luke. Gosh, there's not really anything that's 12 points besides IG-88 that I can think of. I mean, Vader is 16, but he's got all that extra defense. Anyway, comparing 15 to 24 health, like, that's a lot of health for 12 points. And it's just a pain to deal with. And then usually you only kill, like, maybe, you kill, like, 1 or 2 of the echoes, but it's taking you 5 or 6 attacks to do that, maybe 4 or 5 attacks. And it's very strong, so these have been really strong from the playtesting season and performing really well. I will say, I do like the balance, the measured approach they're taking with 6.1. Because the thing is, we're going to look at more of these. They're nerfing a lot of these trooper cards. And what tends to happen is, like, these trooper cards are doing really well. And what happens is, oh my gosh, there's all these cards that are doing so well. We got to nerf them all really hard. But really, if you're nerfing multiple cards that are in the same archetype, the nerfs all add up. So small nerfs to all these troopers are going to add up, and I think they're going to come down and be a lot more balanced, more competitive. That being said, the whole point of that rant was just, like, good luck trying to balance these squad upgrades, because they are tough. They are tough to balance these, making these, like, uber 3-figure groups that are like queen pieces. They're like queen pieces with 3 figures. They're like death balls that roll across the map and just deal a bunch of damage and take a bunch of damage. Yeah, so, but I do like this change to the Z6. I think it's going to help with that, like, focusing the Z6 up when it comes in for that first attack, making it a little less devastating. Let's move on to the next card. Ooh, this is a big one. So, Moff, Gideon, and Demoralizing Monologue. So that's actually his new command card. So, let's talk about Moff Gideon. Originally, he had an ability called ISB Intel that was, you could name a command card once per game. You could name a command card at the start of the round, look at your opponent's hand, and if that card was there, they had to discard it. And then it was supplemented by his old command card called I Know Everything, where at the start of the round, so same timing, you get to look at your opponent's hand and their deck, choose a card, put that card on the bottom, and then shuffle their deck and put it on top. So basically the combo is easy. You just waited till you drew his I Know Everything command card, or you had Intelligence Leak, you could do that too. And then start of the round, you play I Know Everything, you bottom their second best card, and then you name their best card with ISB Intel, and you take 2 cards out of their hand for 1 card, no action. And then that was on top of the fact that he's a spy, and so he can play Intel Leak and Strat Shift, and you can maybe play Calm Disruption if you have some other spies. So his command card control was insanely good, and that got changed, thankfully. There's been a lot of pushback against spies in the meta. My personal opinion is it's okay. Right now it's okay as long as you're not introducing any more hand disruption elements to spies or spy figures. I think the trifecta of Strat Shift, Calm Disruption, and Intel Leak is just about right up against the edge of what is acceptable or what is tolerable for people. I think especially because Strat Shift is very circumstantial. You have to have it right at the right time, and you have to have the figure activation to use the action to use it. So if you could use it, but if you're giving up your first activation of the round and then your opponent's like, okay, well, you did that, now I'm going to hit you as hard as I can. It could turn out really bad, and if you draw it late after round 2, it's not very useful if your opponent's down to like 2 cards in their hand already. So Intel Leak is really the one that you see played in every list now, because every list has access to a spy, which is what people don't like, or what some people have said they don't like. But really what Intel Leak does is, if it's in everyone's list, it basically just snips off the best card out of their hand, out of each person's hand, and then it's like that actually artificially lowers the power level, the top end of the power level of command cards, which is the other thing people have complained about, is that command cards are too powerful, there's too many combos, it's too annoying that you can just play all these combos and combo off on people with command cards. Well, if everybody has Intel Leak in their deck, it kind of helps solve that problem where you get to take away the best card from your opponent's hand and they get to do the same to you. So I actually think it's kind of a nice thing to have Intel Leak in everyone's deck. Some people will disagree with me. I get it. It's not fun to have your card looked at and think you have to have a spy in every list, but there's just a lot of spies that are in the world of Star Wars. Anyway, moving on, another tangent that I went on. Moving back to Moff Gideon. So his ISB Intel ability was replaced. They put the I know everything on the card, so that's cool, which means he's going to get a new command card. And it says, at the end of your activation, choose one of your opponent's ready groups. If your opponent activates that group next, each figure in that group suffers 1 strain. So this is cool. It for those that remember, Thrawn's campaign card had a very similar thing. It was at the start of the round, and then he chose one of the heroes, and if they activated that hero got stunned. So basically a deterrent. In this case, though, you can use this mid-round, and so there's some of that, like, trying to deter your opponent from activating somebody or punish them for activating someone, but I think what is going to happen most of the time is you're going to save your Gideon for later in the round, and then whatever their next activation is, you just wait till they only have 1 activation left and you choose that one, and then all those figures are going to take a strain. I do like that it's stronger against the multi-figure groups, which we are seeing a lot more of because they're getting more pushed. And I've actually been doing some research for a video about the olden days of Imperial Assault, and just looking at how, like, they didn't really account for the fact that the generic multi-figure groups had this multiplier on all their stats. So, like, you know, 8 points of Imperial Guards had the same amount of health as 18 points of Vader type of thing. And I worry that maybe the game is going back in that direction, but I don't know yet. But I do like that I know everything is specifically better against multi-figure groups than it is against whatever, you know, single figure groups that you usually see. And I think it's going to be a really cool ability to see in action, and it's going to I think it gives him some nice texture. I think Gideon was very all in on the, like, I'm going to wreck your hand thing. And I think this ability gives him some really nice variety of what he can do. So moving on, let's look at his new command card. I actually think this is my favorite card of the 6.1 update. Demoralizing Monologue. I think Josh created this card, and I think it's perfect. So it's 1 point, use while attacking to choose and reroll 1 defense die. So that's, of course, the opponent's defense die, the defender. Then you may reveal your hand. You may. If you reveal 2 or more cards this way, remove the chosen die's results from the defense results. So nice little attacking card. I think somebody in the community had suggested, like, just give him make his command card an attack card instead of a hand disruption. And so they went with that. And it's a cool, very cool. It's kind of like it makes me think of The Incredibles, where Syndrome is monologuing, obviously, to try to, you know, and then he gets caught, and he's like, you caught me monologuing. I think that's pretty obvious, but yeah, it's great. It's a cool ability where you basically, I like that it reverses what was going on with Moff Gideon, where before he was, like, looking into your soul and seeing all the cards you were going to play, and now it's like, no, he's going to show you what he's got, and he's going to show you how he's going to beat you, and use that to help him out. So this is a cool card. I like this. I think this will see play. It's like a 1 point. Heightened reflexes. Like, I'll show my opponent my hand to do heightened reflexes for 1 point. He certainly can use the help with the attack. I mean, it's okay. His attack's pretty good. It's good, but he could do better. Alright, next one, Flametrooper. So this one got quite a reaction, I think, from a few people, or a couple people, one person, I don't know. Basically what they did was they took away the napalm token and they replaced it with a rubble token. So the napalm token, for those that don't remember, basically when he hit somebody, he would put a napalm token in their space, and then if a figure ever activated while standing in a napalm token, they take 2 strain, and then you take 1 strain if you move through a napalm token. So the amount of strain this thing was dealing was insane. It was dealing 1 strain to everything that suffered damage from the attack, and then 2 more strains. So 3 strain to the target, 1 strain to everything else that was within range of the damage, which included blast, which included heavy fire, collateral damage, whatever other ways heavy troopers have to ping things for damage during an attack. And then the other thing was the health came down, and the steering committee did agree with this one. It was 9 health before, and then it had this fireproof ability that cannot suffer strain and doesn't suffer from its own blast. And also doesn't suffer from friendly flamethrower abilities. So the health came down to 8 to match the Z6, which means it's still good. Like, it's got Zillow technique too. So, thinking about this one, what did we... Oh, so some people were not happy that the brand new mechanic for this season got taken away and reduced to something that we've already seen before. So I think this one actually surprised a lot of people because it wasn't actually like suggested by a lot of people who were complaining about the card. But I remember when I saw this suggested in the committee chat, I actually liked it, even though I also had never thought to remove the napalm token. But the reason that I like it and the positive thing it brings to the card is that now when you are a new player or a casual player and you're looking at these cards, or if you're playing against these cards, when you read the ability on this, it's not like when it was a napalm token, it just said place a napalm token, and then it didn't say anything else. And you're like, what the heck is a napalm token? I have no idea. Like, how do I find this? You have to pull out your phone or go on your computer and Google it, and it wasn't a good way to like put it next to the card or anything. And it was a barrier to entry. By replacing it with a Rebel token, if you've played Heart of the Empire, you probably know what a Rebel token is. It's a lot more accessible to people who have already played the game before and are familiar with the expansions, the FFG expansions. They don't have to go find out what the heck is a napalm token. So that was a big plus. And there has been talk on, like, I think another podcast was talking about, putting abilities like priority target and professional up in the keywords area instead of down in the text box. Like, it saves a lot of space, but it could create barrier to entry for people. The reason I don't think that's actually a problem is because professional, priority target, I forget what the other one was that they keyworded. It'll come back to me. But those abilities are all on existing FFG cards. So if you've played with any of the cards, you'll be like, oh, professional. Wait, what does that do? Oh, wait, I remember. I've seen that on another card. It's in my binder. I'm just going to pull it out. Or whatever. You go to Tabletop Admiral. So people know what those abilities are because they've seen them before. More than likely if they've been playing the game. Nobody knows what a napalm token is until you actually go and find it in IACP logs. And I do understand that that's going to limit design space a lot if they can't make abilities that reference brand new rules and brand new effects because, right, you're going to be limited to what's already been, and that's not great. You want to expand into new design space. So I think what they're going to have to do is figure out, if they want to bring the napalm token back, you have to figure out how to make it easier to show players what a napalm token is. It's a logistics issue. How do you put it in front of people so they're like, oh yeah, okay, I don't know what a napalm token is, but I know where to go find it, all right? Or I saw it here, or it's right, or when I look in this builder, it's right there. If I look at the card, it's like, here's what a napalm, like maybe a reminder text or something, like napalm token does this, blah, 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 and in the card. But as long as it's this separate thing, like that you don't know what it is, it's very opaque. So that's what I have to say about that. There's definitely, I'm seeing some discussion, and I'm seeing internally the discussion on what to do with the Flametrooper. It's it was really strong though, and I think Incinerate is really strong still. Just dealing strain to like everything in this bubble around your target, because they also have priority target, so they can shoot right through the front line to the guy in the back that's in the middle of everybody. And everything they do works with the heavy trooper like AoE cards, so collateral damage, heavy fire, which is the deployment skirmish upgrade that you can exhaust to deal extra damage to figures around. So there's a high potential for a lot of strain. And I know people did like that it changed the battlefield, so that's why the Rebel token was kept. I think these are still really strong with Riot Troopers, because Riot Troopers are also dealing strain. This thing deals weaken. Riot Troopers also deal weaken. This thing is still really tough, for 8 health, and you've got Fireproof and Zillow Technique. This thing is going to be hard to take down, and if you want to stop the Riot Troopers from reinforcing, because Riot Troopers are so good at playing reinforcements, you got to kill this and both of the Riot Troopers, which is like almost impossible to do in one round. So, especially if your opponent just plays smart and keeps one of them back. So you could kill both Riot Troopers. If you don't kill this thing, they can reinforce one of the Riot Troopers next to the Flametrooper. So that list, I think, is still very strong as a Empire archetype. I don't think this changes that. Maybe not quite as strong with just like Jet Troopers or something, but still really good with Heavy Troopers, of course, because it's a heavy weapon and its cost is reduced by modular. So that's also quite good, just efficient. So I am interested to see what happens to the Flametrooper as we go through the season, and maybe in the next update, and see if something changes. Alright, now we get to stop talking about nerfs and start talking about some buffs. So Scum really sucked in Season 6 playtesting. I can tell you that. Their win rate was very bad because the Empire and Rebel Troopers were just steamrolling these guys. Mayfield had a big buff, so this guy was especially bad according to what a lot of people were saying. Just used to hit like a wet noodle, was not threatening at all, didn't have enough power tokens to feed all of his abilities enough, so he has gotten an upgrade. We see that he now has +1 damage, automatic. He has a surge for +2 damage instead of the surge for Pierce 2, and then his surge for +1 accuracy got switched to a surge for Pierce 1, so those basically got switched. Fast Talker ability is gone. That's the defensive ability that let him spend tokens to add defense results. And now has the Locked and Loaded. You may have up to 3 power tokens. After you resolve an attack, gain 2 power tokens of any type. So this also replaces, he used to have in his attack bar area, gain 1 power token, and a lot of people were confused by that because there's no implicit timing, and not every ability that's in those bars there are attack abilities. Sometimes they're defense, sometimes they're like mobile, so causing some confusion without the surge cost. So I like that it got moved down to be an explicitly like described ability that after you attack you get 2 tokens and there's no confusion. And then this is the first time we've seen a figure that can have 3 power tokens. I think it's been talked about a lot for a lot of different ideas, but Mayfield gets to have it first. And it makes sense because he's got 3 pistols. If you watch the show, he double wields pistols, and then he's got 1 in that droid arm that's represented in that ability there. He also got his health increased to 11, and so that's good because it used to be 10 for 7 health was really bad. And yeah, so Mayfield hits hard now. He hits really hard. He's a trooper, so he can play concentrated fire. He's a smuggler. He can play tools for the job. Of course, he can also play on the lamb and call the vanguard. So he is going to hit hard. He is still pretty squishy. He doesn't have that defensive ability anymore. Even though his health went up, a white die with 11 health is not super durable. He's going to go down to maybe 2, maybe 3 attacks pretty consistently, but he's going to punish you for doing that with Guns Out, even though Guns Out does still have the -1 damage modifier. It basically cancels out with the +1 damage innate, so now Guns Out is not Guns Out used to be not good. Basically, you shoot at Mayfield, he'll shoot back at you and deal maybe 1 or 2 damage because of that penalty. Now that it's been canceled out with the +1 damage, it'll actually threaten real damage. And you'll actually have to pay attention to Mayfield and not just let him hang out, which is what was happening before. People were just like, well, I don't have to shoot him. He doesn't hit hard enough for me to have to pay attention to him or do anything really. Sorry, guys. Almost done. All right, moving on. Oh, there was an update to Honoring the Fallen. So this has been updated to say currently defeated figures. So I think this was confusing for a lot of people. That was like, well, what happens if my trooper is defeated in my list, but then I reinforce it, and you're basically bringing it back when you do that. But people were like, well, reinforces is not resurrecting. So, and then it's like, does it still counts as defeated? And then it's like, well, if it gets defeated again, then it counts as twice defeated. And it's like, no, that's not the intent of the card. So this is a nice little quality of life update to make it a little more clear that this only counts the figures that are basically no longer on the map. They're sitting off to the side of the map, and you're not counting the same figure multiple times for this. Okay, so the big one. This is the big buff. A lot of people are talking about this. I think there's a mega thread in Zion's Finest Slack channel talking about this card. So let's talk about it. Mandalorian Rising Phoenix. Just like Mayfield, very bad win rate. Matched the Scum win rate, which was like down in the low mid 20%, which is really bad. Although that was only if you counted its Scum games. If you looked at it, Empire was actually doing okay, quite good. So let's look at the changes. Mudhorn Crest, that's the same ability, just got a new shinier name. Protective Fire, this is the big one that got changed. So now it says, after an attack targeting you or the child, so that's the companion brought by Clan of Two, is resolved. If the child is incapacitated, you can interrupt to perform an attack targeting the attacker. Limit once per round. And then Beskar Spear was also updated. It now says perform 2 melee attacks using your attack pool. Then these attacks gain reach and pierce 1. And it no longer gives you 2 movement points before you do that. And also, it used to give you pierce 2 on the melee attack, but since you get 2 attacks, that was reduced down to pierce 1. Okay, let's talk about Mando. So the idea here, and just kind of a reminder, why would the child be incapacitated? And we can look at that. So the child is a companion brought by Clan of Two. Normally it cannot suffer any damage because of Clan of Two unless it's being attacked. And it has force exhaustion. So when an attack is declared targeting you or a friendly figure with Clan of Two, so the child protects itself and it protects its friend who is taking care of it, you can become incapacitated. If you do, the attacker removes 1 attack from the attack pool and becomes weakened. So what's happening here, the theming or the flavor is that Mando is basically the caretaker of the child. He wears the child in a bag around his hip. If you're shooting at Mando, it's basically like you're shooting at the child too, because he keeps the child next to him, both in the lore and in the game, because Clan of Two has the ability that at the end of the activation, you push the child companion to an adjacent space. Where is it? At the end of your activation, push the child figure or its incapacitated token to an adjacent space. So the child always follows whoever's carrying him. So what was happening here is the old Protective Fire ability was whenever you attacked a unique figure other than Mando within 2 spaces of Mando, or was it 3? I can't remember. He would attack you. And this was leading to what I was talking about earlier, just a lot of defensive abilities that you had to think about that weren't on the target. So this was combining with stuff like Onar and Onar's extra protection and Greedo and Guardian cards. And so it was just kind of mentally exhausting playing against these scum lists, which is funny because they weren't doing well, but they were very unfun and tiring to play against. I mentioned that's kind of the paradox of these abilities is they're not that good because your opponent eventually figures out how to play around them, but when you're playing against them, they're like really annoying to have to try and figure it out. Eventually you do, but if you don't and you get hit by it, it feels really bad because it means you're not paying attention. So that got changed. And there's reasons. There's multiple reasons. If you can't tell, this was actually one of the things I suggested, and I had very good reasons for suggesting this. So let's talk about some of the pros from this. Now that we've talked about the flavor, so a lot of people were like, "Well, that feels weird that the Mando would knock the baby out to be able to attack somebody back," when that's not what's happening. What's happening is, the child is getting shot at. It's protecting itself with its force powers. It becomes exhausted and passes out when it does that. Mando then shoots back at whoever was shooting at the child. Mando also shoots at whoever's shooting at Mando because Mando's carrying the child. So if you're shooting at Mando, you're shooting at the child, and he does not like that. And he's going to protect the child. So, here's why this is good. So, protective fire. No, let's talk about the child. So the child creates a certain play pattern that it incentivizes because of force heal. So with the child, the play pattern that is encouraged by the effects here is that people try to save force exhaustion for as long as they can, and they try not to use it for as long as they can because they want to have access to force heal for as long as they can. If you incapacitate for force exhaustion, you can't force heal anymore. So there's already a set play pattern that we see with that, is people keep waiting for force exhaustion. This incentivizes a different play pattern. It incentivizes it by encouraging you to use force exhaustion sooner than you normally would, because even though you're losing access to force heal, you're gaining access to protective fire. Now, you're not always going to need to do that. Sometimes they're just going to attack you and you don't have line of sight back. So it's like, why would I'm not going to incapacitate here just because I can't use protective fire on this attack, so I'll wait. Also, some people were like, why does the child use force exhaustion when it's being attacked? Well, there's a reason for that, and it's because we wanted to make sure that when this card was designed back in Season 4, we wanted to make sure that if you're playing against this card and it's like doing this force heal, or it's removing the harmful conditions that you're working hard to put on your opponent's figures, like, you want to be able to deal with that, and you don't want to have to be, the only way to deal with that is to kill the thing that it's healing, because that's really annoying. So we made it so that you could attack the child and incapacitate it, although your opponent got to choose if it got incapacitated or if it just died, to remove that ability to force heal. And the reason that it was important to keep it around with incapacitated was because the whole point... I should move this to the other side, so I can just click between them. The whole point of Clan of Two was to have a companion that turned into an objective. The idea that was submitted for this card was, hey, I want it to be like Season 1 finale, where the child keeps going back and forth between the different parties, and they're fighting over this little baby. And so the whole point of it was supposed to turn into an objective that you would retrieve and that your opponent could retrieve to fight over. And so we needed to, if it just died all the time, if it was just constantly dying because it only had 2 health, and there was stuff like blast or force choke that got around abilities like insignificant that prevented it from being attacked, then it wouldn't be able to do that because it would be removed from the table. So incapacitated was the hack that allowed us to keep it on the table, but make it so the opponent could deal with it without defeating it and get it out of their hair, and just, it had some counterplay to it. So that's why that works. The other good thing about Protective Fire, this new version, is that there is a problem with these type of Mandalorian figures, including Boba Fett, that have really high defense, and that are vehicles, because they synergize so well in Empire. They love Zillow technique with extra armors tokens, and they love fuel upgrade and overrun with jet troopers. It's just like, it's bread and butter, it's peanut butter and jelly. It goes so well together. And the problem is that we've seen with Boba Fett is you don't see him in scum lists competitively. You see him in double jets lists in Empire because he's so good with jets. His everything he does is works with jets, and it doesn't work with scum, really. I mean, there's some scum lists, like I know there was a lion ambush list that Isaac was trying to do with Boba, but you don't see him in like normal scum lists the way you used to see IG-88 headlining these like hunter scum lists. And we don't want that for Mando, really. We don't want it for Boba, but that ship has kind of already sailed. The way that you keep figures in their factions is with these skirmish upgrades, because you can't Temp Alliance a skirmish upgrade into the other faction. So that's why you don't see Han being run in Scum. You don't see IG-88 being run in Empire, when they totally would be if they could bring their skirmish upgrade attachment with them. But that is native to their faction. And so by using Protective Fire and tying more of the Mandalorian's utility to his skirmish upgrade attachment, Clan of Two, it's ensuring that he has a place in Scum, that there is a reason to run him in Scum and not just in Empire. And so that's really important. Trying to think. And by the way, he does win in Empire. He was winning in Empire more than in Scum, and that's without Clan of Two. And in fact, he even won more games in Scum without Clan of Two. That was weird. That was a kind of a weird game. Anyway, moving on. So I think there was one more reason that this is important. I think there was like, people were talking about like, oh, well, Protective Fire should he should be able to actually protect the child and like take the attack. There's 3 cards in guard. He's a Guardian. He can run Bodyguard and he can run Get Behind Me, and those cards work awesome with Protective Fire. Like for anybody, if they're shooting at Onar, use Get Behind Me with Mando, and now you can play extra protection and Protective Fire. Boom, like that's a big one. But again, that's hidden information, so Get Behind Me's always been kind of a should we have really made that card? But at least now with the way Protective Fire works, the way it used to work is it didn't matter who you attacked. If you attacked Mando, you got hit by extra protection. If you attacked Onar, you got hit by the old Protective Fire ability. So it was a catch-22. Now you have a much better thing for the opponent where it's like, okay, I don't want to get hit by these free attacks, so I'm not going to attack Mando, I'm going to attack Onar. Because I know that if I attack Mando, I get hit by Protective Fire, and I could get hit by extra protection. If I attack Onar, then they have to have Get Behind Me to do all that stuff. So, and then finally, so the Beskar Spear thing, I think that we were talking about how a big problem with Mando was that like I said, these defensive abilities are bad because, not bad, but they're paradoxical because they create a lot of headache for the opponent, but ultimately you can play around them and basically make them not matter. And that's what was happening with Mando, is people just playing around Protective Fire, and he wasn't actually getting off multiple attacks per round. He was just doing one attack, and a figure that costs 10 needs to be able to reliably attack multiple times in a round to be able to get its points value back, because otherwise you should just be running like 6-point figures that attack for the same amount and cost half the cost, like Onar or Sabine or whatever. So Beskar Spear was the answer to that. Obviously you can't have him just attacking twice because he has a good attack, but having the melee attack, just multiplying it by 2, it means he has to get in and mix it up and make himself vulnerable basically if he wants to get those double attacks. Otherwise, if he wants to hang back and hide and use that mobile thing to like strafe people, he doesn't get the second attack. And so that's the payoff there. And so I think this is a much more how should I say it? Complete version of this card. I think, well, I don't want to say anything about that, but this version feels more complete to me. Like, it feels like this is what a 10-point queen piece figure should be doing. It should have this cool ability, it should be thematic, and it should have ways to do multiple attacks. Yes, it does look a lot like Han. It has the 2 attacks base and then the reactive second attack, but it's different. It's different from Han. It's not return fire, it's protective fire. It's based around Clan of 2 and the child companion. It's not end of round attack, it's Beskar Spear. It's the melee attack. You get the second melee attack. So yeah, I think this is a much better version. I'm really looking forward to playing it and playing against it. I think it's going to feel a lot more just good. It's going to feel good. So that's it, everybody. Oh, wait. We have one more. Did we have... Okay, yeah, one more. Forgot. First Strike. So this card also got updated. This might look like a non-change, but this is important for Bib Fortuna because his illicit income ability is once per round. So because initially First Strike was during setup, he did not get to capitalize on the VPs here to get that extra VP that he needs to fuel his focus ability. So this was updated to allow that. So now if you play First Strike with Bib Fortuna, you get 5 VPs, your opponent gets 4, and then you'll go down to 4 each once Bib spends that 1 VP for the second focus token. So yeah, basically you were seeing First Strike with Bib a lot anyway, but he was going down to 3 VPs to opponent's 4 VPs, so that felt bad when you're already paying an extra point. I'm going to give my real thoughts on First Strike. I don't like this card. It's really boring. I also don't like that this card was equated to squad upgrade attachments. In fact, this is not what this says attachment. I did that, guys. That is on me. I'm terrible. This is not an attachment. Although, really, it's kind of like an attachment for Bib Fortuna, because really you should be playing it with Bib all the time. So I'll have to go in and fix that. But, yeah, this is not equivalent to a squad upgrade, so I don't like that Rebel and Empire got basically 4 new figures, and Scum only got 3. But apparently that ship has sailed. And then... But yeah, I like this update. I think that... So I thought Bib should also get an update. I just thought Scum needed an update across the board. But I think the steering committee made a good decision to play it a little safer and see how Scum does. Because you also, in addition to Mayfield and Mandalorian coming up from down where they were, you're also going to have the Trooper stuff and Rebels and Empire coming down from where they were, way up high at the top. And so this is kind of a small little indirect buff to Bib Fortuna. And that's going to be it for the video, guys. I hope I didn't say anything too scandalous. Just thought it would be fun to kind of share my thoughts. It's hard when, like, I already know what a lot of the reasons for why things are done. So, but I really wanted to make a video on the updates, and I thought this would be more fun to just kind of share my thoughts unfiltered sort of on these cards. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time for another one.